Welcome to CPG Vibes. No scripts,
just chat.
I'm Alex Baer.
And I'm Wade Yenny.
Each episode is recorded live, and we talk all things food and beverage, and so much more.
Feel our vibe and search for CPG Vibes on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and make sure to give us a 5-star review.
If you'd like to sponsor our show with your product or service, email us at cpgvibes100@gmail.com.
Now, let's vibe.
All right. Hello again. It is Deja Vu. Can everyone hear us okay? Wade, you can hear me, right?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. We had a little technical difficulties, and we actually posted the new link in the old one. So we had our original episode crashed, the stream ended, and now we had to create a new stream, and Wade has already posted that link. So we're going to get people to start slowly coming on here, and I'm just going to rehash.
This is
everything.
Like Saturday Night Live. I mean, this is this is truly no script, just chat. Here we go.
Yeah, that's
hopefully everyone makes it over here. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And if they don't, it's okay because it's recorded.
As I told Alex, I knew it was crazy because it was just it was not letting me do things. But it looks like all functionality is back. So knock on wood, Alex, we're good to go.
Yeah, I mean it's the first episode in 60 episodes where it crashed. So that's a pretty good math right there. Pretty good success rate, if I had to say so myself. All right, so we have some comments here. Shit happens, no biggie. Jeff Lakovsky, Rich Moniz, I lost signal for a while, etc. Okay, so we're going to go through it again. We're going to rehash the sponsors, and then we're going to bring on our guests. And this episode is the Expert Series, Volume 11, CPG Shutdown Stories. All right, and we're going to talk about, we're going to bring on Erica Rankin, who had a CPG brand, and she unfortunately had to shut it down, and her kind of experience through that and what she's doing now, and kind of the mental aspect of what it's like to build a brand and then, have to unfortunately shut it down. And then if we can get her back, because she got booted off the last stream, Andrea Popova, she is the owner of CPGD, which is a network of CPG professionals, 10,000 strong. And she's a journalist, editor. So she'll be talking about also what it's like for other founders to have to shut down their brand. So I'll go through the sponsors here. Hopefully we can get through them before it crashes again. Just kidding. Knock on wood. All right. So, and this is episode 169 as well, from what I can see, right? Or 160. We'll get the number right. All right. So with all that said, our weekly sponsor is Rich Nuts. Rich Nuts was founded by firefighter and paramedic Rich Powells, who solved his own digestive issues by learning the power of sprouting. He discovered the simple natural process of germination as a way to mitigate the digestive issues caused by eating raw nuts. So they created organic sprouted nuts. And if we're all still here by the end of the episode, we are giving away a gift box from Rich Nuts valued at $75. And we'll come up with a trivia question. We also have our ongoing sponsor, brand new ongoing sponsor, which is Shelf Made. And calling all food and beverage founders, whether you're just getting started or scaling fast, Shelf Made is your go-to resource to launch and grow your brand smarter. Wait, did you know they have a free option now?
I think I heard that, but maybe it's just me.
Yeah, I think you heard it about maybe 5-6 minutes ago. Let's pretend that it's new. So they have a free option where you can join a community already several hundred strong and growing fast, that quadrupled in size in the last week or so, where they have a community of CPG founder chats, exclusive events, free trainings that help you take your next step without spending a dime. It's perfect for anyone who wants a taste of Shelf Made before going all in. And you can also go pro with the Inner Circle paid subscription. Go to shelfmadecpg.com, put in CPG Vibes in the field for a discount, the discount code, and you'll get $100 off your full year option or quarterly. Again, shelfmadecpg.com. You can connect with experts. You can have online courses. There are webinars, live coaching, retail calendars to get access to. It's pretty sweet. Replays and much, much more. Build, launch, and scale your brand with shelfmadecpg.com. Okay. So there we go. And Joseph Camerari. We're just going to go through some comments. And Andrea, I'm glad you made it back. So we're going to bring on Erica and Andrea in roughly about 5 or 6 minutes here. But we're going to read out some comments. Might as well go a little bit old school here. So we have Derek Gould. We have Chris Liberty. It's funny. He's saying, ironic that the pod crashes on this episode. We're going to talk about that. Maybe there's a reason behind that, because the market is crashing, and so did our podcast. So, because we're on April 4th right now, very historic day for the market, to say the least. And and we have to re-mention that we're going to be having a special edition bonus episode on, which is a first for us, Wade. I don't think do we ever have it on Monday? I don't think we've ever had an episode on Monday.
I don't know if I can say ever, but I think you're correct.
Yeah. I think we've had them Thursday, Wednesday, and Friday, but not Monday. So we're going to have a bonus edition episode about the tariffs and how it's having major impacts on CPG brands nationwide and also internationally. It's going to be on Monday, April 7th at 1:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. So make sure to join us for that. And it's not going to be a political show. It's not about whether we think it's right, wrong, or indifferent. We're just going to talk about the potential and already the impacts on the market and also CPG brands, most importantly, especially those that are sourcing internationally, right, for raw materials, their supply chain, and packaged goods and things, and also finished goods. So, running a brand like Genius Juice for 10 years that was internationally sourced, it would have put a pretty big hurt on us if we had to face something like that. So for all the founders that are going through that out there, the tariffs and potentially paying higher prices, we feel for you and hope everything is okay and you come out the other side. So our hearts are with you on that. And we have Rich Moniz. We have, I think, Joseph Camerari and a couple others. Hugh Curtis. How you doing, brother? And Jeff Likovsky. And we have a prize, again, $75 end of the episode. Stay tuned, and you win the prize, $75 worth of Rich Nuts. So we'll bring on our guests in a couple minutes. We'll cover this briefly because it's just such enormous news, right? That has really shaken kind of the worldwide market here. But President Trump on April 2nd announced reciprocal tariffs for several countries, pretty much almost every country that we're doing trade with, especially countries such as Mexico, Canada, China, Vietnam. These are all countries where many CPG founders that I know, and you know, Wade, are sourcing from these areas of the world, and they're going to be paying some kind of tariff. I don't know when these actually go into effect. Do you have any idea, like when they're actually going to be implemented, or just you know as much as I know at this point?
And I know as much as you do, but let's see. I'm not sure. Yeah, I was looking to see if I could Google it quickly, but there's too much to read here, so I'm not sure when they start for sure, but impending, right?
Yep. And can you see my screen here?
I went away from it trying to Google. Yes.
Okay.
There's a lot there.
Yeah, so this is what was at least announced thus far, and we just share this more for the live people, the ones that are listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify. You won't be able to see this, and we'll talk more about this on Monday. But again, we need to cover this given that this is such fresh news and worldwide news. That there's these tariffs, right? There's China, which is going to be 34%. Actually, there was already a 20% tariff, so it's going to be, unless my math is incorrect, it's going to be 54%. For anything sourced from China. European Union, 20%. Mela that just sold to Calypso, they were sourcing from Vietnam, right? They're watermelon and coconuts, so they're going to be subject to a 46% tariff. Taiwan, 32%. Goes on and on and on. Thailand, where we used to sourced our coconuts from, 36%. I don't know, Wade. I can't imagine if I were still in business having to apply a 36% tariff, and having to eat that cost. So I guess with all that said, not to speculate, but brand owners are going to need to figure this out, whether it's lowering your cost of goods sold, whether it's reformulation. But I think the people that I don't know what they're going to do yet. I'm sure they'll figure it out. They're resourceful, smart people, these CPG founders, is what if you depend on international supply chain?
Right.
Like, what if you have to source from there and you have ingredients that are only grown internationally? And that's how you built your brand, right? Based off this ingredient, right? Exotic fruit, a nut, whatever it is, rice, anything. I'm wondering how they're going to navigate this, and
Right.
we don't know.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's crazy. I think that's all we got right now. It's completely crazy. We don't know what's going to happen. So hang in there, everyone. All right. So we're going to bring on our guests here. So we have Erica Rankin, and she's a LinkedIn ghostwriter. I think I got that right. And she also does some social media stuff as well. And she's very well versed in TikTok and Instagram. Not sure if she's focusing on that, but that's what she's very good at that. And then we have Andrea Popova, and she is the owner of CPGD, and that's a resource platform of 10,000 strong CPG people. And you can get a lot of resources, a lot of news updates from them. And she has a newsletter that goes out as well. So let's bring them on the show. Thanks for your patience. How you ladies doing?
Welcome.
Good.
Hey.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, pretty ironic that our first stream crashed. I'll leave it at that. And you got to be the witnesses and the first guests to witness a crashed podcast out of the first 160 episodes we've had. So glad you bared with it, and welcome to our show. So we have a tradition. We're going to start going clockwise and start with Erica. If you can tell us about you, about the brand that you had. What was the brand? When was it shut down? What are you doing now? It's a lot of questions. And one thing about you that a lot of people don't know.
Okay, so I'll try to do this quick. So I had a company called Brodo. I launched it in December of 2019, and it was a protein cookie dough. So it was gluten-free, clean ingredients. I used to do bodybuilding, so that's kind of where the product came from. I'm super passionate about it. Knew nothing about CPG, and had I known everything about CPG, I don't know if I would have gotten into the industry like many of us. But yeah, I had a run for 4.5 years, and I shut it down in early 2024. I think a couple days ago, I filed bankruptcy, I think on April Fools of last year.
Wow.
So it's like my anniversary. I had a video come up from a year ago that I didn't post until last week. And it was me in my car, like making the decision to shut my business down and file for bankruptcy. But yeah, that was my thing. 4.5 years. I did direct to consumer for the first little bit, and then it was a refrigerated product, so pivoted into retail, launched it into a couple hundred stores across Canada. I'm in Canada, I forgot to mention that. And yeah, it was a very challenging industry to be in, and now I'm more so in the content creation marketing space. I really love this space. I hate operations. I hated a lot of aspects of CPG, and now I kind of have found the place that I thrive in, and that's community building, copywriting, consulting, all under the marketing umbrella.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for the kind of the review of you and what you've done, Erica. And then one thing about you that we don't know.
One thing about me, I had miniature horses for like 12 years. Like think of like a horse but shrunk down, like 30 inches tall. That was my passion for a very long time, and it kept me out of trouble as a kid. So I don't know.
Love that.
Yeah.
Like a pony or just miniature horse?
So they're not ponies. It's like actually a horse, miniature horse. They're a breed, and they're like various sizes. But I had like 4 of them, and I taught them how to pull me in like a sleigh in the snow. Like I did that whole thing. So love horses, want to get back into horses. That's one part of my life that I missed, and I don't really talk much about that.
Cool. All right. Did not know that about you. All right. So Andrea Popova, welcome to our show. And that's kind of similar question to you. Tell us about you, what you do, and then one thing about you that we may not know.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I run a newsletter and directory called CPGD. It stands for the Consumer Packaged Goods Directory. And it's really just an online free resource about brands and ways to discover brands. And a lot of investors use it to source deal flow. Founders use it to scope out competition or just to get inspired. So I don't directly run and operate a CPG brand, but I talk to founders weekly, sometimes daily, and really get to understand from the ground up how they actually run their businesses. And it's really, I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. To what Erica was saying, it is like one of the hardest things I've ever seen someone accomplish is running a CPG brand. So yeah, when people ask me like, would I ever start a CPG brand, and I always say no because I just think I'm not strong enough. So I think to this point of the discussion today, I've been speaking with so many founders lately who have either closed their businesses or will close their businesses or are grappling with an imminent raise and just what that means for the future of their business, the tariffs. So yeah, just a lot of different insights coming together, and would love to dive into kind of what's going on in the industry and how different founders are facing this difficult time.
Gotcha. And then also that, unless I can't remember if he answered, but one thing about you that we do not know.
Yeah, one thing about me is that my family's Bulgarian, so I speak Bulgarian. So it's like a fun fact. It's a language not many people know. So
cool. Very cool.
Nice.
All right. Well, where to start? I mean, I think just a question for either one of you is, we can talk about the environment and what it's like to start a brand right now, but I think, that could be a long conversation. I think we can start with like, what are some of the top things that you should ask yourself if you're if you're a person wanting to get into CPG, you want to be a founder, you want to create a product and bring something new to the market. What are some kind of realistic questions you need to ask yourself as checkpoints to make sure this is something you really want to do? Because I think there's people thinking about starting brands. They may not think about all the scenarios and what they're going to face when they actually start their brand. So I think, Erica, I'll start with you. Like, what's your advice to people that are wanting to start and what they should be asking themselves before they actually get going?
I think the biggest thing is just understanding what you're committing to, because this isn't like a 1 or 2 year thing. It's like, can I do this for 20 years? Because that's what a lot of these big successful exits you see happen. That's what it takes, and that's how long they're in it for. And there's a lot of trial and error and pivoting, and the first product you launch with might not be the product that helps your business take off. Like, I think that's the biggest thing is, can you commit to it for that long? Are you going to be able to commit to it for that long? And then the second piece is, do I have enough money? Because that was something else that I didn't really take into account. I think there's an element of naiveness you need to have, like, to go into the industry and just kind of learn as you go. Because if you overstudy everything, you're going to scare yourself. You're not going to take the jump that you need to take. Educate yourself and take calculated risks, but fully know like how much money you're going to need, especially with retail. Like, I had no clue. Like, pick your path, figure out how much it's going to cost for you to go into D2C versus retail, what the path will look like, and like write out a rough business plan, but everything is going to change. So I think those are the two big things, is like the resources, and then how much time like is realistic to commit to this.
Right. Did you start like full blown full time when you started Brodo, or did you kind of ease into it, or what was kind of your path on how much time you committed to the business? I think we lost you.
Your audio cut out there. Yeah.
Still lost you. Okay. We're going to come back to you, but we'll go to Andrea.
Wait, can you hear me now?
Yep. I can hear you now.
Okay. Okay. I have like headphones from 2015 and they're not great. So, okay. What was it you asked?
Yeah. So I guess the question is for time commitment, right? Like, when you started Brodo, were you doing it kind of like part-time and then seeing how it would go and then kind of putting more and more time into it? Or did you start like full bore, full time from the very first day?
So I went full time into it, and I had like a bunch of savings, but I was so scrappy. Like, I didn't have any funding in place. I think I spent less than like $5,000 to $10,000 on startup stuff. I was doing really, really scrappy things. And I realized going into it, like, oh crap, like a year or two, I need money. So I started like hustling and doing consulting on the side as I was building my business. So I
Right,
did
right.
kind of reverse. I went all into it, and then I'm like, crap, like this is a really hard thing, and I'm not going to be taking pay for a while. Up until the day that I shut down my business, I wasn't paying myself. Which is really bad. You shouldn't do that. You should pay yourself. The whole leaders eat last thing, I don't know if I fully believe in that. Like, you need to pay yourself. I had a full-time employee, and I paid him, but I didn't pay myself. So yeah, I wish maybe that I also took a transition into it, and maybe I had a job and I could have funneled that money into it rather than stressing over my finances and trying to build a business at the same time, because it's very stressful.
Yeah,
being
I'll add one thing, then we're going to pivot over to Andrea very, very quickly. Is yeah, if you're gonna, if the worst thing is having a founder that's stressed out over money, because then they're just, number one, they're going to have to get another job, and then on top of that, they can't really focus on the business as much if they have a part-time job, and then they also are just stressed out on a day-to-day basis when running the business, which is not a good mental space to be in. So I agree with you. A founder should be paying themselves, maybe not, 150,000 a year, but something to at least cover the bills. And investors that are coming in should expect that a little bit of that money is going to go towards keeping the founder afloat so you can focus on the business. So, Andrea, over to you. Thanks for being so patient. What's kind of advice or things you would tell founders if they're thinking out there of being crazy enough to start a brand?
Well, just piggybacking off of that, I had heard a story actually of a brand that I really liked, that was founded by two brothers, and they previously had really fancy consulting jobs, and then they quit their jobs to do the startup. And anyway, when their company sort of didn't do well and went under in the end, I heard some whisperings saying like, well, of course they didn't do well in the end. They were paying themselves $100,000 or more each. And people were kind of giving them a lot of flack for that. But I think, speaking to what you're saying, I don't know if that was such a bad thing, because then they weren't motivated to take part-time work on the side. They were fully committed to the company. And I think that actually was probably a good thing for the longevity of the company, even though it didn't work out. So I fully believe founders should pay themselves as well. And oh, thanks, Hank. Yay. So I think that founders should just ask themselves, like, is your goal to make money, or do you just want to like make a difference in someone's life? So if you just want to create a product that's like this really fancy, I don't know, olive oil that is super clean and you've never seen anything like it, and you don't care what the margins are, you're here to make the world a better place, then who cares? But I think if your goal is to make money with a CPG brand, then you should ask yourself, like, how fast can this become profitable? And if it's not in the imminent future, at least somewhere in sight, you should not get started, I think.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot on this subject, and 100% correct there, Andrea, both you actually. And for those that don't know, I mean, I ran a brand for 10 years called Genius Juice. It was a coconut smoothie. We didn't make it up to Canada, but we were in the US, and we were in upwards almost 5,000 stores at one point. And we had, again, small brand, lifetime sales of around $9 million, right? On Shark Tank, all that good stuff. But when looking at why I started it back in 2014. So I was 32. And, I'm like, oh, I got some years to try to figure something out. I'm not old yet. I'm not super young, but I have some runway to take a chance, right? Take a chance, get out there, put some of my own money in, and see if this is going to work. And, and one thing that I had from the very beginning is I had a lot of passion for the product. I really loved the whole coconut and that whole thing. But I think a lot of founders, and this is like, because I also went through this, I was so passionate about it that sometimes you don't focus enough on whether it makes complete financial sense. And I would communicate this to investors that, once we get more scale, we'll get the margins up and we get some more retailers. But then we got hit with international, not tariffs, but we got hit with like prices going up, the pandemic, container costs going up, coconut going up and down because it's a very fluctuating crop. If it's a dry season in Thailand, the price of coconut skyrockets, right? And you have no control over that. So I think one thing I wish I did more research on is knowing the long-term effects of sourcing internationally and how that could really wreak havoc on our margin and really compress the margin. So I think that's one thing that I wish I did more of. I'm very passionate about the product. Everyone that's met me knows how passionate I was about Genius Juice and the product, and it had a good run. But we didn't really focus enough on potential risks, margin compression, and how, there's a lot of headwinds, especially for international sourcing. So, Erica, being in Canada, this is prior to all the stuff happening now. Just being in Canada, what were you thinking about as far as, how, when you're in another country besides the US, how much do you build your brand in your home country before breaking into the US? Like, what were you kind of thinking about and going through as an entrepreneur back then?
Yeah, I did plan on coming to the States. It's just so difficult, like exporting goods. It brings in a whole nother barrel of challenges. But yeah, the thing is, like, you have to master your backyard and own your backyard and make the brand super well known, like where you're from. Like, you have to go out and do demos. You have to have boots on the ground, and you can't be doing that if you're like all over the place. Like, you have to really saturate an area. And I was doing that, and I don't know if we want to like get into all the problems yet, but
A lot of problems in this industry.
because you think that retail solves all your problems. It's like, oh wow, like I'm in Whole Foods, everything is great, and like I'm a millionaire. We've made it. And in America, I think there's like 500 Whole Foods, 400. In Canada, there's like 13. So like it's just like a completely different scale. And the problem that I was running into when I scaled into retail, like I was still pretty much a one-woman show. I had one full-time employee, but my problem was just I didn't have the resources in place to handle all of the distribution. Like I was the one going in stores and doing demos. I couldn't afford to hire a demo team for 2 hours, 3 hours, and fork out $200 each time. And then even then, they weren't really doing a good job in selling the product. So and then merchandising, making sure that it was on shelves. Like I remember stopping in 10 random stores, and 3 of them had the product merchandised properly. The rest had the wrong price point, or it was in the wrong part of the store. They couldn't find the product, and then you're paying a broker to like manage this and make sure it's executed properly, and then a distributor. So I guess there was just a lot of challenges when it came to retail, and I can't imagine trying to manage that from another country or in a completely different space and has different rules. And I think the key is to like really own where you are and understand how everything works, and then max out your distribution there and then hop across, which is why a lot of brands don't come to Canada until like way, way, way later on, because it's so hard to max out distribution in the States. You have so many places to go. There's so many doors. So why would you go to the extra effort of getting bilingual packaging and exporting into another country? It doesn't make sense, right?
Right. So I'm kind of keep going from there, Eric. I know your story from a personal perspective really resonates with me, because I started, I've shared this publicly many times, but I started at a very young age in the restaurant business and got the bright idea at 22 that I was smart enough, wise enough, and capable financially to own my own restaurant. And the outcome of that, just about 3 years later, was a personal bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, you're sharing it, your story of resiliency, and the blood, sweat, and tears that you shared is just inspiring to so many. And I think, first and foremost, I want to thank you for sharing and being so transparent with the community. And secondly, I want to give you hope that there are better things ahead. I think, and I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And, I believe that for you. But that being said, no, and this is difficult because I know how I would answer the question if someone asked me. And I know the wounds are still fresh, but here you are a year later. And with everything you've learned, and, I know there's things that you hate, that you mentioned you hated about CPG. Do you see yourself in the future, and I'm not setting a timetable, whether it's tomorrow or 10 years from now, ever even thinking about dipping your toe back in the CPG pool?
You know what? I've had so many opportunities. I said no to all of them. Maybe if I have a couple $1 million lying around one day, and if I have unlimited resources. I really do love the space. The industry has the most passion out of any industry, because there's really no money in it until you exit. Like, you're not making millions and living your best life if you're building a startup in the CPG space. And that's what I really love. Like, I loved going to trade shows. I loved seeing everyone and trying products and all the innovation. Like, it was just such a good experience. And it's also so cool to like have a product that you built and then see it on shelves. Like, there is no other comparable feeling. And I love it. And I wish that it was just different. I wish the industry was different and the systems were built to support startups more, because they're not really. Like, it's built against you. So I'm not going to say never ever, but maybe if the right opportunity presented itself. And I know what to do differently now.
Yeah. And I think for me, that answer has always been and is to this day, sure, but not with my money.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
that's a good way to put it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to pivot over to Andrea here, because I know you have a hard stop in about 10 minutes or so, right? Given that we started late. To kind of piggyback off of what they were just talking about, where our brand's now looking kind of outside the box, pun intended, on what are better ways to run a brand? What are better ways to be sustainable? Because the game of just retail is brutal. What Erica was talking about, it's very difficult. You got to have boots on the ground, got to have resources. You can't just put on a shelf in 500 stores. Like, okay, I'm good, I'm done. Just let it sell off the shelf. That's where it starts, is when you get on the shelf. How do you get it off the shelf? What are you hearing from your community, Andrea? You know, whether it's through messaging, emails, or stories, on what brand founders are doing to correct, you know, to fight some of the challenges that are happening in the industry right now.
I think a lot less founders are trying to raise. It's counterintuitive, because a lot of brands are also like trying desperately to raise. They can't get enough money and then they're closing. But I think on the flip side, a lot of brands are finding that to really scale, not having investors breathing down your neck, giving you unrealistic goals to hit, is actually kind of a good thing in the long run in some cases. And yeah, so not raising, I think, is the most common thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some individuals on LinkedIn. There's one, which I won't name who it is, that's starting a new brand, right? We can kind of guess who that person is, but and I think this individual is looking at how can we better navigate this system and be sustainable, potentially profitable, and not be at the mercy, right, of certain, whether it's a distributor, whether it's certain retailers, where it's just really hard to get in, and when you get in, there's enormous slotting fees. And I think that's just, I'm not singling out one distributor or one retailer, because this is just the way that the system is. And so I think brands are starting to try to hack that. How can I get around that? But like, the most difficult thing is, and like a question for both of you is like you need some of these people to scale, right? You need a distributor if you want to go in more stores. You need this major retailer, whether it's Sprouts, Whole Foods, Fresh Time, Fresh Market, HEB, it just goes on and on, Albertsons, to scale, but the costs are very high. So if you don't want to raise money, like, how do you scale without raising money? It's a very tough question, but what do you think?
I don't think you need money. Like, I mean, I've tried to do it. I used my Jeep in the winter as a storage unit and drove with the heat off. Like, you can't scale like that. Like, I don't know. I think there's a cash flow crisis when it comes to CPG. Like, and why I had to file personal bankruptcy is because I was so delulu. I was so set on like building this brand and was like, I'm going to make it work. We're going to, eventually get to a place with retail. I'm going to have money coming in. It's going to be great. I got my first PO from Unify and it was almost 20 grand. And I'm like, sweet, this is great. And then I think I got paid maybe, I got paid like 2 or 3 grand of it. The rest was chargebacks. And I'm like, what the heck? And also the first distributor that I had, they took 84 days to pay me. So I had 84 days. I was chasing them down. And they also sent me an old school check in the mail to an address that wasn't even like I was at. So I had to like go chase it down. And I had 30-day terms with my manufacturer. So I had to take out a personal line of credit to pay my manufacturer to keep that relationship in order to keep things going with my business. So I think I'd be curious to hear from other people how they scale successfully without having the funding. Maybe it's not from investors. Maybe they don't raise money. Maybe they just have a lot of money saved that they can invest into their business. Because you hear a lot of stories out there like, I never raised money and I built this on my own. But okay, how much money did you invest into it of your own? Because, you know, when I started my business, I had barely 2 pennies to rub together. I invested like 5 to 10 grand. And yes, Hank, there was a lot of chargebacks because it was free fills. I had like so many stores and it was all free fills. And yeah, free fills are not as cheap as you think they are. They add up.
No. Well, I mean, not only that, but you know, not to get too technical here, but you know, from Wade being in the business and now you're on the other side and with V Driven and you're advising brands on how to, you know, how to scale and do it in a sustainable way and getting into the right retailers. But these free fills for certain distributors, they don't charge you like your selling price to the distributor. So as an example, you know, and the way it's like, yep. So like they charge you, let's say, you know, let's say you're selling a case for $18, right? Like that would be your normal selling price, $18 for a case. They charge at the book price, right? At the book price, which is at the highest possible price through that distributor. I don't know the exact terminology of what is behind that, and Wade can probably shed more light on that. But that $18, $15 is now $24 or $27. So they're charging you that amount, which is more than the cost for you to sell it. So you're now giving up the cost to sell it, plus you're paying more on top of that, plus you're paying a merchandiser, plus you're doing an opening intro, plus you're doing quarterly promotions, plus you might have spoilage. Anyway, there's a lot of post-traumatic stress here that's making my head start to hurt. But, you know, Wade, I guess going through this, right, and also Andrea, like you heard stories from founders, like how the hell do you get around this stuff? Because you can't. I mean, and I think like the question I asked 7 or 8 minutes ago that's hard to answer is, how do you scale? Like when you can't, you know, you're not going to raise money and you don't want to be charged back too much with these major retailers or distributors. Like, what do you do? Is it just a 15, 20-year slog? Is there another answer? Maybe there's no answer right now, but I just throw that question out there.
I'm going to let Andrea answer it first because I know she has a hard stop. So I'm going to let her go first and I'll chime in.
Well, thank you guys for having me on again. I really appreciate it. And I guess after this, I'll just float away into the ether. But I think that, yes, good point. It's not that you can't raise at all, or rather the brands don't raise, but they don't raise like as much venture capital funding as I saw before. I think it's a lot more friends and family and people who have money just lying around. Unfortunately, it's just really leaning more towards that kind of group of people. Not unfortunately, but just, you know, it leaves less room for the little guys, basically, when you're in this kind of economy. But I think the only way to get around all of it is really just to try to own your audience as much as possible. It really only works for some types of products that work best D2C. And even that is so dependent on things like Meta or TikTok ads. But I think for the most part, if you have a product that's cheap to ship, low cost to make, you know, really just really great for D2C, maybe in the health and wellness space, that's probably the best type of product to scale right now.
I like that. I know you have to go in a minute, but I would emphasize what you just said, where, you know, look at Will Nitsa, IQ Bar. I think he is, and I don't know if he's profitable yet, but I imagine that he's close or he's already there, where it's light, shelf stable, easy to ship online, not going to go bad if it's hot, not going to go bad if it's cold, because it's probably, you know, heat treated so that it won't go bad. And he started online, and as far as I know, then he started breaking more into the retail space, but into the right partnerships. And he's probably doing millions, tens of millions online. He's like, you know what? I don't have to pick every retailer that comes down the pike. I don't have to go into that retailer. I don't have to go into X, Y, and Z if I'm not going to be profitable there. So I think with his power online and his brand awareness, it gave him leverage to say, you know what, I'm going to pick that one, but I'm not going to go to that one, because that one, they're going to treat me better and they're going to pay me in full without a chargeback. So I think that's a good avenue to build your brand. And Genius Juice, and I have to go in a minute, but Genius Juice was the anti-online product. It was heavy, refrigerated, and sensitive. So I think if I had to do this again, I'd be more of a D2C friendly product. So Andrea, I know you have to go.
You made an amazing product.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
that's
I'm proud of
the
it.
trade-off.
Yeah, it's a trade-off, and we did a lot of retail doors, but online was
Yeah.
very tough. So, but thank you for joining us, for being on. And then
Thank
just
you.
one more
Thank you
time,
very much.
can you mention your community again and how people can join?
Yeah, check out cpgd.xyz, or if you just Google CPGD, and subscribe to our newsletter there. And just let me know if you have any brands that you want us to list in the directory. So yeah, thank you.
Great.
Awesome.
Thanks so
Happy to
much.
see you.
Thanks for being on. Take care,
Thank
Andrea.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Okay.
just kind of go from that real quick. And we didn't ask Erica if she had a hard stop because we are going
We have
slow.
no idea. Maybe you do, maybe you don't.
No, my dad will come home and I will disappear.
Okay. That's
Because
okay.
I'm not home at my parents.
So we'll go
Yeah.
like another, let's call it, folks, because we started late. Let's go to the 10 mark. How about
Okay.
that?
All right.
Yeah.
So I'll just kind of expand on what you're talking about. So, and I think these comments from T are fantastic and well said. She says there's so much pre-planning before saying yes to a retailer, i.e. the free fill. The main question is how long will it take me to make that back? I always try to push back if a store bigger than 10 location asks for 2 cases per SKU. And I think going into that, I think it's important to first and foremost. Tia says there's much pre-planning before saying yes to a retailer. I'll agree with her and go further and say it's okay to say no to a retailer or no, thank you, not right now. And I think so many times we get excited as founders and business people is saying let's more doors, let's go. And something else on here I thought I saw is for how much longer will it take to make that back? But is it going to be profitable? Is it an investment? If it is an investment, is it the one that you want to make? Meaning, okay, so you just got her example is bigger than 10 locations, but let's say even those 10 locations, they want 2 cases per SKU. So then you start doing the math as far as 2 free cases per SKU, and you have 3 or 4 SKUs. And you have let's say 9 locations. So right away, you aren't getting paid until they sell through those first 2 free cases, and then they reorder, assuming they reorder, which is a whole nother conversation. And then they have to place another PO, and then you have to wait for your money from the distributor. It takes time, and so I think it's a very involved thought process regards to all those things. So negotiating free fills, asking for leniency with regards to being a new brand and being tight. Can you spend that money or those efforts in demos or something to drive volume as opposed to just giving free product that you're and just kind of working through that, or at least asking the question. And then if you're told no for that, really sitting down, and I know Alex, you said it, is this the right partner for me? Is this the right, that is going to keep the product on shelf? Because some of these, and I'm not naming distributors and I'm not naming stores, but some of these stores out there will push these free fills or even partial free fills or 50% opening discounts and never order again. And it's a true income generator, profit structure for their companies. It's like, hey, yeah, I don't know this, Erica. Yeah, sure, I'll put it on the shelf, and you take the free fill, the 50% off, and you never hear from them again. And so it's really, working through that, negotiating it when you can, and making sure that you've established some kind of agreement, hopefully, that it's going to be on the shelf for more than that free case that came in. So there's a lot there.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot. And I think that's why it's really important to pick the right retailer. Like it's important to go into the right retailer because then your product would sell, right? So like Erica, if you were ever crazy enough to start another brand, right? If you wanted to, if you had some money lying around, right? A couple $1 million, I'm sure this time around you'd be like, okay, where should I go? Where's this product going to sell? Where are there no free fills? Where can I go with a distributor that's maybe local, like a DSD, where they're not going to charge me back to, oblivion, right? And so, there's a couple of retailers I'll mention because we all, I know we come off like me and Wade like we're idiots, but we know what we're talking about here. And a couple of things that I'll mention is there's some great retailers that do not do chargebacks, at least from when I dealt with them with Genius Juice. So one great retailer, again, whether you go in there early, mid, or when you're kind of pushing to maybe get acquired later on in your brand life cycle, is Costco. I really like Costco a lot. And Costco, you can take a lot of chances there because they bring in new brands all the time that don't have a lot of brand, brand exposure. Brands like Kodiak cakes, right? They started in Costco. Not common, but that happened. And they built it to over $100 million and then they sold it. Publix is another one in Florida, Southeast Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, where if you deal directly with Publix and not through another distributor, they don't have a free fill at all. The other one that I'll tout for the V-driven stuff is Sprouts, the innovation set. There's no free fill, right, Wade, on that one.
Right.
So you can reach out to V-driven and Wade and try to get on the shelf because they have a great relationship with Sprouts, little cheap plug there, where you can get on the shelf there and they're in that kind of new innovation set section, and they don't charge you a free fill. You get in, you get a 3-month trial. They do the PO, they pay you basically in full, right? Boom, here's the money. And you can try out at Sprouts. And then if you succeed, then they bring you on the actual shelf full time. So like I said, there are strategies to get around some of these difficulties because, if you can't raise money, you got to watch every dollar and where it's going.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Definitely.
All right. Any, Erica, last words before, now that's a really melodramatic way to say it, but any words before we go into our prize here?
It's not too late to turn around, whoever's watching this. I'm just kidding. No, I guess like tying into what you talked about with scaling and distribution, all of that. I think one thing that I learned is just because a product sells well online doesn't mean it's going to translate into retail. Like you have to dial in everything, the price point, where it's going to be merchandised, the packaging, the serving size, the ingredients, like everything has to be dialed in. And I learned that the hard way. I launched the same product that I had online into 100 stores. It didn't sell. So I had to pull it from shelves. I had a pallet of product I had to get rid of that I sold heavily discounted and lost like 30 grand. So that's another thing, is just making sure that your product sells and the price point's dialed in and everything is solid before you really pull the trigger and decide to like commit to a bigger account that has more stores.
Yeah, I think that's so funny. Someone said right on, pivot is always an option.
Yeah.
Joshua Shirts, based off what you just said. Erica.
Yeah, and I think it's something I know I use and I know Luke uses is we use the word hypothesis, right? And so Erica has a brand that does well in D2C, and to her point, before entering into brick and mortar, you have this hypothesis: this product and this packaging at this price point with these ingredients, these attributes is going to sell in retail. And we always refer to our sales team as their job is to test the hypothesis. And truly do just that, is to test it before you get too far along. Alex, you mentioned the innovation program, and I talk about I commend Sprouts for their for them that program together, the limited cost, the user friendly point of entry, and all those things. And I think there's a lot to be learned there from a standpoint of if you get into that set. And see how those numbers are. I say this when talking to people about the potential. You look at it this way. You have a set, right? And you have your grocery aisle and coffee and these things. The innovation center is set outside the normal channel, right? It's at the end of the grocery aisles or somewhere, and they've trained their customers for the last several years to shop there for these products, right? And that's where to go and find the latest and greatest and new and innovation, all these things. And my comments is always, if I'm looking at it from a category manager, putting that hat back on, if I can't succeed with my brand off shelf at a place where I'm training them to come, in other words, they may not be shopping, making something up the coffee aisle, but there's coffee on the innovation set. So if I can't get their attention with my product off shelf, incremental space, I probably need to go back to the drawing board. And I think, talking about some of these things that, those are the times, early stages, to iterate, whether it's packaging, whether it's attributes, whether it's ingredients, whether it's cost, whatever it may retail, whatever it may be, before you get too far in, and diving into a pool that has 2 inches deep of water. So just a lot to think about as far as that goes.
Yeah. And, I love case study. I think it's, like someone said earlier, Wade is dropping straight gold here. I think it's more like platinum.
I like it.
And, so But with all that said, you look at kind of case studies, right? You look at case studies, and we'll go to our prize in a second, that there's brands that have done really well online. But for whatever reason, maybe people pay more online for convenience. I don't know, I don't have the science or algorithms behind it. And, there's like, I won't say which brand, but you can probably guess which one. There's like a $9 cereal, $10 cereal. Phenomenal online. It's phenomenal sales because you can market to people, do the social media thing. You can educate people. What is this? Why should you buy it? And then people click the link on TikTok Shop or whatever it is, and they go over, or on Instagram, and they go over to your webpage, they go over to the shop, they go over to Amazon, and they buy it because they're educated on it and they watched a video on it. It doesn't translate like that to retail. There's no video, there's no flat screen right on the shelf as far as I've seen. And people don't know what it is sometimes. So when you go from online, I think what you said, Wade and Erica, just be careful. Like, don't go nationwide in this big retailer thinking that because a lot of people buy it online, they're going to buy it in retail now. It still is a slow slog. It's still going to take time to build yourself in retail. So start more regional, be careful, crawl, walk, run, going from online to retail. So our prize is going to be Rich Nuts, 75. You're not going to win his actual nuts, but you're going to win his nuts. So it's an ongoing joke with this company. That's a running joke with it. So there's going to be a gift box, and each gift box is going to have 6 bags of nuts. The retail value is $74.99, and these are sprouted, organic nuts with gourmet flavors. And they have a WeFunder page, which is up, wefunder.com/richnuts, if you'd like to invest in them. All right. So what is the question? I do it every week. So
I have one.
Do you have
I have
one?
one.
Yeah.
I have
Go
one. I have a backup one if no one gets this one, but Erica's still on, and not Hank. I'm sorry. Hugh sent me a question as well. But I'm gonna, since Erica's here, it's a question about her, something she said earlier. So I have 2 to choose from. I'm gonna go with one. I think it's relatively easy if you've been paying attention. Erica mentioned a little known fact about her, and it was relative to something she had when she was younger and growing up. And the hint is that it's an animal. What is it? So we'll wait for that. And meanwhile, while we're waiting for the answer to pop up, there's always a delay here. I want to thank Erica again for being on the show. She was on, my gosh, Alex, what episode was that? That was like a long time ago, right?
Yeah, I think like at least 50 or 60 episodes ago. It
least.
was before 100.
At
sure.
least. So
Yeah.
you can go back and listen to that. There's Gavin. Gavin got it. Nicely
Yep.
done, Gavin.
Yep.
I was just going to also say that as Alex mentioned, we are doing a bonus show on Monday talking about tariffs. And again, it's not a political statement. It's simply talking about impact to our industry, which is going to be whether it's talking about supply costs, ingredient costs, transportation, logistics, all those things. So it's just conversational. And if you join us, please keep that in mind. So anyways, Alex, we're done.
Yeah. And I'll say that we won't be political, but we had no control over the comments. So they may be political.
Right.
We'll see. So, and also a big thank you. I know she had to hop off about 15 minutes ago, but Andrea Popova with CPGD. So make sure to go check her website out. And Erica, you're amazing. I think you're a strong entrepreneur. And I know you're already landing on your feet, doing something new. I've always admired that about you. So I'm glad you're still going strong. So, and you've had a really mature approach in how you handled, having to shut it down and then pivot. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
Well, and I want to take it a step further. You're a strong entrepreneur, but you're also a strong person. So, kudos to you. A big fan. And Robert's right. We need to remind everyone that in 2 weeks from today, is that right? 2 weeks or
no? It's next week.
Next week. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. Next week, April 11th. April 11th is the Canada show. We're going to talk all about Erica, your home country at CFHA. We're going to have guests on. Robert's going to be on. We're going to have someone, Alex, the guests are from CFHA. At least one of them is.
Yeah, correct? We have 2 guests from what Robert emailed me. 2 guests from the CHFA, and we're finalizing the other guests. They're coming up quick, and we're going to do a big announcement in the next couple days And again, this episode is also sponsored by Powerful Energy. The Canada show on next Friday, sponsored by Powerful Energy Distribution. So, and Robert's putting the whole thing together. He's the man, and we look forward to that show this coming Friday, April 11th, 12 o'clock, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you'll be seeing some announcements shortly about the show.
CHFA. Thank you. It's been a long day, Robert. CHFA. I might have said CFHA. It's CHFA. And so, yes, look for that information. All coming. We'll have our stuff together next week. It's been a traumatic show with the topics, the PTSD, the streams just completely blowing up and everything.
Plus I'm up in the mountains and there's like air pressure like compressing my head right now, and it's hard to breathe up here.
Yes. So CHFA Canada next week. We'll see you there.
A lot of good stuff.
Yep.
Take care, everyone.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a cat there. It's heard meow.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, everyone. A good way to end the show. All right. Bye.